CES January 2024. There's a million different things to look at. Only one of them really caught my eye. It looks like a full-length glove with a hockey puck-sized disc mounted on the back of the hand. It's called gyro gear, and it blew my mind. G'day, I'm Mark Pesce. The coming next billion seconds are the most transformative in human history. One reason why has to do with the incredible advances in longevity. We will live far longer than our grandparents, far longer than our parents. Our children will live far longer than us. All of that is wonderful. None of it is simple. In this mini-series, we're taking a look at longevity, whether technology can help. Not medical miracles, but gadgets. Gadgets that extend our capacity, that allow us to keep our agency for as long as possible. We're looking at kit that has value as we age. That's on this episode of The Next Billion Seconds. Okay, so what is this gyro gear that blew my mind? Well, first, you have to put yourself into the body of someone who has primary motor tremor. Now, the common cause of those is Parkinson's, but there are many other causes. You can't write your name. You can't type at a keyboard. You can, if you're lucky, lift a glass of water to your lips, if you're lucky. And when your situation deteriorates, well then, you're going to need someone to do even that for you. This is where gyro gear comes in. You slip it on, you turn it on, it measures the tremors in your hand in real time and cancels them out. That hockey puck that's sitting on the back of your palm, it has a gyroscope. It's dampening the movements of your muscles in real time. Think of it as noise cancellation for your body. And suddenly, with gyro gear, people who have not been able to use their hands at all can use them again as if they were almost fully able. It's liberating. It's fundamentally liberating. It means they don't need full-time care. They get a lot of their agency back. And it took a decade to develop gyro gear. I talked to the man who did it. It won all of the innovation awards at CES 2024. It's incredible, and it's just the beginning of something new, something that we call Agetech. Technology is designed to help us keep our agency while we age. So to talk about where we are and where all of this is going, I want to welcome back to The Next Billion Seconds author Abby Bloom. Hi, Abby.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Also joining us is fellow futurist Dr. Catherine Ball. Welcome for the first time.
Very first. I'm feeling very nervous. Bit of performance anxiety, Mark.
Abby, we're going to throw the word Agetech around. It has a lot of definitions. Do you want to unpick it a little bit for us?
Look, thanks a lot. This is part of my wheelhouse. Agetech is the group of services, products, including gadgets, software, and other things that help people who are aging or have a chronic disability to bridge the gap between that disability or lack of ability and well-being, productivity, and purpose.
And I guess part of what we're also saying here, Catherine, is that although we're calling it Agetech, it's really about extending capacity for anyone who needs that extension, right?
Yeah, this is the thing. When we start labeling things with a certain demographic attached to it, we're actually disenfranchising the full spectrum of humans that would be able to use it only to augment, to prevent the issues they've got, but also to augment themselves physically. So one of my sources of frustration around a lot of this, Mark, is that these technologies, when they're funded the way they are by typical VC firms in Silicon Valley, they have to put out what their market is they're aiming for, and all of the money coming back to their investors will be from that market, and you must not divert from your present course. And I find that as a systems engineer incredibly frustrating. Every time I post things like the gyro gear on social media, and more recently things like thought to speech, thought to text technologies, I get a gamut of like text messages, phone calls and conversations from people saying, oh my gosh, where can I get my hands on that? Oh my gosh, I really need that for my mother, I need that for my brother, I need that for my son. And I sit there and I go, why is it that we're not able to discuss these technologies for the whole of society, that they get ramrodded into these very narrow tubes of money back to the investors, and rather look at the opportunities across everybody?
So let's take a look. I want to highlight 3 that we're going to take a look at. And there's 2 of these came through the Agetech collaborative that's being run in America by AARP, the Association for the Advancement of Retired People, right, which is a huge organization. First one's called Cadence. They look like a normal pair of sneakers, right? But they're designed by a movement doctor who understands how people move and how they lose their balance on the wrong kinds of surfaces to have a grippy bit right underneath the middle of the front of the shoe. And all you have to do is sort of settle in, and the shoe just sort of pops down, and all of a sudden you're maintaining your balance on a surface that you would have trouble maintaining balance on. It's very simple. It's not very expensive. They cost about the same price as a pair of normal sneakers, but they're designed for people to help them be a little bit more stable on their feet, right? So that's lovely. That's already in production. The second one is something that I actually saw here at South by Southwest, which has blown my mind, called the Hapta. And I saw this, of all things, in the L'Oreal booth. So how we were talking about the gyro gear doing a cancellation on the tremors on your body for your entire arm, the Hapta does that for a lipstick or a mascara. It's dedicated. So you can put on a lipstick even if you have a primary motor tremor. You can put on mascara even if you have a primary motor tremor. And you go, well, okay, it's beauty. Well, actually, that's kind of part of agency and dignity, which is one of those words that's sitting on the precipice between, is that a good term or a bad term associated with aging? But both of these, and it's also representing, because the gyro gear is $5,000 worth every penny. This is not going to be. This is the consumer wave of these kinds of age technologies. And then the skip. Can you tell us about the skip?
Thanks, Mark. This is something that I came across last year.
Yeah.
Also at what's called CES, at the annual
Consumer Electronics Show.
In the U.S. And again, this was at the showcase or pavilion of the AARP Agetech Collaborative, which has been going for 10 years now, and identifies, promotes, and funds the startups in what they call Agetech, because that's what they do. They're a membership organization of people over 50. So Skip was actually co-invented by a young Australian person. She is a Renaissance person. Her background is extraordinary. And it's also illustrative, sadly, of the brain drain that we have, that if you do want to...
what does it do?
Thank you, Mark. What it does, it gives you extra oomph, and particularly for climbing upstairs or inclines.
Right.
And that becomes difficult for people, some people as they age, or for people who have knee issues.
Yes.
So it's
As someone who has suffered from knee issues, I can tell you that.
So the term that we might think about using is re-enablement or enablement, which cuts across different demographics.
All right. And so, and this is, the device is basically I think in the version of the Skip, it's basically almost part of the fabric of the pants that you're wearing.
Yes, that's correct. People may be familiar with different versions of exoskeletons,
Yeah.
and some of them fit around your entire body, and those are terrific for those who need that. But this one slots into your clothing, and like a lot of startups, they were trying to figure out who their real market was, who was going to pay for it. And they've got a couple of propositions. One that we're able to see here at South by Southwest is a partnership with a global athletic clothing brand, and they're developing it with that particular brand.
So, Catherine, you come back to this question of venture capital, and because one of the reasons why the AARP program exists is because there is a lack, or there was a lack. Are we starting to get to a point now where this market is being seen as big? And, Abby and I have seen this at CES, where the Agetech part, and I was not prepared in 2024 for how much of the show floor, there was literally a pavilion that was all Agetech. And I was in heaven because I knew about it, but I hadn't seen these amazing pieces of work. My favorite, if I just can for another second, there was this piece that was a cane that just shines a green line, laser line on the ground. Why do you do that? Well, it turns out if you have Parkinson's, using a green line as a guide actually helps you to move. It's doing whatever, it's routing around the signals in the brain that aren't quite flowing right, that actually allows you to make your next step easier. It's a trick. It's basically a visual illusion for your brain. And it's cheap because it just goes into the cane. It's things like that that they had an entire floor of. So do we need that model here? Do we need that model everywhere? Does that model mean we're going to have a pipeline of good Agetech?
There's a couple of things converging at the same time here, right? So previously, everyone develops a solution and then tries to find a problem that they can sell it to.
Yeah.
I think we're maturing a bit now. The startup industry itself is maturing as a construct from government funding perspective and from also defense spending. Let's just remember where some of these technologies may have actually come from is actually from defense. A lot of the exoskeletons particularly have been involved in frontline and SAS soldiers for a long time to give them that longevity in the field, right?
Yep.
Athletes and how they're training with some of their technologies. And one of the things that frustrates me is that actually these are not reaching the people that actually need them the most. So if we reverse engineer and go, right, where are the problems? When I first go and work with any kind of company, the first thing I say to them is, bring out your sick, bring out your dead. I want to see all the health and safety stats. I want to see all the deaths. I want to see all the near misses. I want to see all the injuries. I want to see your dirt. Show me your problems. That's when you can start finding the solutions really quickly because, as we all know, 95% of startups fail because they haven't got a maturely developed business model. So I think this has bitten some of this technology because it's gone in this idea of, well, let's go for the aging population, a population that doesn't necessarily have the dollars to spend to develop that to become a viable business model. So they've either been burned or they've waited or they've diverted their funding to something else. Defense has been a great big source of opportunities, and of course we refer to these things in the space industry as dual use or triple use or multi-use technologies. Yes. The exoskeletons, for example, that Toyota have had on the car plants for decades, and then we look at the slips, trips, twists and falls that happen inside our aged care facilities, not the patients, the carers, the nurses, the doctors, people looking after and caring for people at home. They are the ones that actually need these exoskeletons to be able to lift 120 kilos without popping their backs. Yeah. But whenever I've spoken at health and safety conferences, and I've said to people, the average cost in a workplace of like a hospital or a nursing facility or an aged care facility is like, say, 200,000 Australian a year per incident, right? You get 200,000 per incident. So the cost to have an exoskeleton on a nurse is $5,000.
Yeah. Nothing.
And the problem
I saw multiples of those in the Agetech area.
And this is why I'm really excited for CES in January, because I want to see how much bigger it is again. Yeah. And the point there is those technologies, when I look at them, and I slipped over in the street on a wet footpath, I look at that Cadence shoe and think, if that technology had been built into the trainers that I was wearing that day, I might not have slipped and broken my wrist in a place where if I was 50 years older, I could have broken my hip. Yeah. And so the thing is, the pavement was wrong, and I've got to deal with something to do with the pavement being wrong. But again, we look at these inventions, and I only ever get frustrated because if other countries have been doing it for 10 or 20 years, why is it taking so long to come through to places like Australia and the UK to commercial sense? When as a mother of two very small children, the idea of having an exoskeleton to hold me In the middle of the night when I'm breastfeeding a child, I don't want the robot to hold my child.
No.
I want to hold my child,
Yeah.
but I need someone to hold me.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think many mothers are actually inventing these technologies at point of conception, but we are certainly people that would pay good money for commercial versions of these things.
But I think the thing that we're all pointing to is there's a change in mindset that's happening here. You know, it's not just the dual use mindset, but it's around the fact that care, we need to, in a sense, decenter it a little bit, right? To come back to the book that you've just written, the carer needs to be cared for. That's what I mean about that decentering. The care needs to be spread throughout the system. It needs to be spread through our devices, how we're thinking about designing the systems that our devices are in. So maybe that's, in a sense, that's the secret revolution that we're calling Agetech, is being able to, oh, well, we're doing this for seniors. Well, no, actually, we're doing it for everybody.
If I may, one of the things that, and we'll use the term Agetech for now.
A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, Abby.
Okay, or Enable Tech.
Enable Tech. Yeah, I like that. Enable Tech.
One of the things that it is increasingly being used for is to fill in the gaps. We know that certainly in Australia there are huge and very painful gaps between the being well, your health span, being treated in hospital, being sent home, being cared for, and the huge gaps in the system until these recently have been taken up by unpaid family members, the carers, and there has been very little thought, because they've always been there. That there's been very little thought given to the applications that, Mark, you just mentioned. That's just coming now. Yeah. Yes, and I mean a good example of that involving sensors and AI and Wi-Fi is wearable devices that enable the unpaid caregiver, the family member, to know what's happening to their loved one 24/7.
So it's interesting that you talk about this. One of the things I was, because I do read the Agetech Collaborative feed on LinkedIn religiously. One of the companies that was in there has done a pivot from LiDAR systems on automobiles because we don't have autonomous vehicles, which is clearly where they were planning. They're now saying we can track your loved one to within a millimeter inside of your apartment. Yeah. And I'm reading this, and I feel as though one of the lines we're dancing across here is that line between surveillance for their own good and the surveillance for the peace of mind of someone else. And we haven't really started to negotiate that. I saw a lamp in 2024 that allowed you to know if the person had fallen, but that person was also being surveilled 24 hours a day. And I'm just not clear if at 93 I want to be able to be, I want to lose that much privacy just for the sake of agency. And I don't know if we've asked those questions yet.
Well, I know what my mother would have said.
Which was?
No way.
Yeah.
But that is an issue. And this is very individual and culture specific.
Yeah.
So there's a very, very different view of this from the individual perspective in a place like Japan.
Yep.
Compared to, well, we don't know yet. And so the New South Wales Smart Sensing Network that I'm part of actually has had to do this research in Australia, because these things are individually but also culturally determined.
Yes.
I would say, though, that I think that for many people there comes a point where they are willing to trade in some of their privacy for the
Agency, to be able to age in place.
Exactly.
Sure.
And also to be able to communicate with their loved ones.
Yep.
This is the Internet of Bodies.
Yeah.
This is the thing we've been talking about for years, the rise of the fifth industrial revolution, taking all of these technologies and moving it into a place. But I'm interested in this cultural context. In Japan, for example, you're not allowed to surveil people directly with cameras. So they actually build the sensors into the floors and the walls. So they'll know if someone's fallen over because their body weight is on a sensor pad on a floor and has not moved. So they're not doing yoga. But they don't need to be conscious to press one of those, the things that we wear around, in Western countries we have around our necks, where we expect people that have fallen over to be able to press a button and not be unconscious, and actually actually be able to press and respect that. Now we've got the falling accelerometers in things like standard smartwatches and smart devices.
Every time I have an accident on the bike, it wants to call 000
It's
for
like,
me.
can it do it for you? Well, I saw a video on the internet the other day of a car crash where she was actually wearing her Meta glasses, and it actually had her literally just after the car crash had happened, where this truck had run completely into her. It was completely not her fault, and she was able to call her husband while she wasn't able to move. Can you call Chad, from her Meta glasses through the car to call for help? And of course, I drive a BMW that has an automatic call for 000 if you have an accident and your thing goes off. This question of surveillance, though, Mark, I feel like we're hitting a bit of an oxymoron with the term surveillance, because quite frankly, we are the most surveilled in society that we have ever been. So people that would be in their hundreds now, of course, would feel that this is actually a very strange idea, that they would be watched all the time, whereas my children know that there are cameras everywhere watching them. I come from the UK, which has more CCTV per mile than anywhere else in the world. And I remember what the term CCTV used to be the hot topic. Do you want the CCTV on you? And now, as soon as we have a murder or an incident or anything happen, the first thing we rely on are CCTVs. And where I live, because we all have the Ring doorbells with the videos on, we actually have the coppers coming around asking us if we have any Ring footage to pick up where things have been happening. And of course, I work with drone technology, so you want to talk about surveillance by proxy. I just don't think the word surveillance and even the word privacy is going to be relevant in 10 years.
Mark,
sorry.
If I may just say something. So I think maybe there is an important distinction between surveillance and monitoring. Now,
but this is what I'm saying, is I think there's both a linguistic change, but I think part of what Agetech is forcing on us is that we have to be linguistically clearer about the difference between surveillance and the spaces where we know we're being surveilled in, and the spaces where we're being monitored.
Surely that's just a definition of consent.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
It's all about consent. But the thing is, you can't consent to something that you don't understand. And the unfortunate thing is, with a lot of the wearable devices and implantable devices even, we don't know who's buying those data sets. We know that when you walk into a shopping centre or a train station or an airport, your gait can be analysed by how you walk, and that can pick up whether or not you've got a neurodegenerative disease, pretty much. And someone inside the financial system or the health insurance system might know that you're sick before you know that you're sick. And so part of me would say, if we're going to be doing this monitoring and going to be doing these multimodal types of different forms of surveillance, surely the best way to actually integrate this into a conversation around consent is to show people how it can be empowering, but also show people what data amalgamation companies are actually doing.
Good point.
Abby, Catherine, this has been brilliant.
He's
Thank
done such
you
a good job
so
herding
much
us,
for
hasn't
joining
he?
us on the next billion seconds.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everyone.
Well done, Mark.
Big thanks to Abby Bloom and Catherine Ball for taking the time to join us on the next billion seconds. Bigger thanks to the staff at South by Southwest Sydney for giving us the space and the opportunity to bring this to a live audience, hoping there'll be lots more of that next year. The Next Billion Seconds was written and presented by Mark Pesce. It's produced by Medium Productive executive producer Josh Butt and Ample. If you like our show, please remember to follow us on your favorite podcasting app. And if you know someone who might be interested in this topic, please share our show with them. This is Mark Pesce, thanking you for listening.